This Protoman review is brought to you by Big Bad Toy Store. Big Bad Toy Store, the ultimate in toys.
And we're back, and it's another awesome Transformer retrospective review. We have Transformers Predacon Rising, the Beast Hunters, Skylinks. So we're going to go through all of the Skylinks that have ever come, and we're going to end with this one. So let's do this.
Protoretro.
Skylinks. Personal favorite of mine, a historical Transformer character, but I always found he was always undersold on releases of who he was, what he did, and everything around it. Now, it all started back then in 1986 with this. This was the original Skylinks figure. Hasbro, back then, was doing a lot of outsourcing to smaller companies to pad out their line, and they went to one company called Toybox. Toybox was a company that worked very closely in the past with Radio Shack, which is now known as The Source, and they pretty much were hired to either use molds that Radio Shack has previously used, like Shockwave and Omega Supreme, which were known as Astro Magnum or, Astro Gun or one of his many, names, or in the case of Omega Supreme 2, was also a toy that originally came from that toy box, stable, if you will. But here we have Skylynx. Skylynx was a original creation by Toybox for the Transformers toy line in 1986. And the thing is that this toy actually never got a release in Japan, despite the fact that he was a predominant player in the Transformers 2010, what we know as Season 3 show, because Takara, who was distributing Transformer toys in Japan, was not a big fan of, quote, advertising other competitor toy companies. So they didn't want to have Toybox's toys in their own line. So that's why the likes of Omega Supreme didn't show up in Japan at the time. And Skylynx, another good example. The funny thing is years later, this Skylynx toy would get reissued in Japan, obviously as Toybox was completely decimated and didn't exist anymore, and it wasn't an issue anymore for Japan and Takara. So they reissued it, and the reissue Skylynx, done by Encore, which was done in 2008, the only difference is it has the painted eyes, if you will, or the painted cockpit, and they painted the inside gun of the mouth. Otherwise, it's the exact same toy, more or less. But it was the first time it was released in Japan, so hey, that's awesome. So I'm just going to transform it quickly, just to let you guys see what was the big deal. Very simple transformation. So you had the opening mouth, which had a gun here, and you had these dino teeth, extending neck. You had the wings. Again, it was a very simple transformation back then, because Toybox wasn't exactly Transformer experts when it came to this kind of engineering, but they did what they had to do back then, and you could actually see on the bottom here, let's see if you can see it, it says Toybox next to Hasbro, and the back here was his tail, and that was Skylynx back then. There was his Lynx part. I could transform that for you just quickly, but and it had a motor gimmick, which was Skylynx's, which was Toybox's thing. They always did motorized or light and sound kind of Transformer stuff. So that was him more or less back then, and that's the character that we're going to be talking about today, and this new Beast Hunters toy that has his name. This boy right here, Skylynx. So we're going to go through the history. Now, obviously, like I said, this toy was kind of shortchanged in Japan, and on top of that, character-wise, just didn't appear again. So for years and years and years, there was no Skylynx toys. Names of other characters used, new names, everything. And something that was very Dino-esque didn't even show up in Beast Wars or even have a name of Skylynx, which again would have been a really good name along the lines of Air Razor and Jetstorm. But then in 2005, Japan did something. Japan had a Lucky Draw toy, which was a repaint of Flame Convoy, which is what we know as Scourge from the Cybertron line. And I believe there was only 250 of these made, and it was done through TV Magazine, and it was called Skylynx Flame Convoy. And it was just a Flame Convoy more or less painted up to kind of look like Skylinks with the red and the blues. And I guess because Flame Convoy was this dino-esque looking, you know, alt mode, they thought there'd be a good connection there. Broad shoulders, very wing-like. Who knows what was the main mentality. Now, this is not to be confused with a toy we got here in the Cybertron line known as Cryo Scourge. While it's similar, it's quite different. Cryo Scourge was actually more of a homage to Cryotech, which is a Beast Wars toy repaint of Transmetal 2 Megatron. But yeah, so that was the first time the name kind of made a comeback, although it was very subtle and it wasn't even the character really in spirit, just kind of a homage repaint. But it wasn't until 2006 with the Cybertron line did we did get a return. But here's where things took a change, and it was a change that was permanent forever. Skylinks returned in registration name, but now as a Decepticon. And this was something that was going to become predominant from that point on. This was obviously the tail end of the Cybertron line in 2006. And it was a Minicon repaint from the Armada line. And they called him Skylynx. I guess, number one, beautiful mold degradation. These molds were repainted 1,000,000 times. So the degradation. And so there he was. That was Skylynx. Now, obviously it was more so for Hasbro to just get back some of those classic names, because 2006 was on the cusp of 2007 with the movie. So they kind of wanted to get back some of those classic characters. But at least with that, they got back the name. Now, in 2007, while there was no new Skylynx toys, Hasbro, jumping on the huge trail of the 2007 movie doing insanely well, there was a Transformers card battle line. It was a battle card collection, Transformers. The first wave used movie characters, but the second wave kind of homage to old school characters. I'm going to pull these up here. So we had Skylynx. Now, what they did, obviously, was they took the movie Megatron design and they repainted it to colors that, in all honesty, kind of looks like Target Master Misfire from G1. But it used those parts and made the 3D card battle, or 3D puzzle, if you will. That's how I always kind of saw this line as. And they called it Skylynx. I'm going to obviously post a picture here of how it looks assembled, because this actually was in the card line. It was considered a rare. It was tough to get. So to get that was pretty difficult, so I keep them unassembled like that. But yeah, that was, again, the first time we had a Skylynx character now that wasn't a mini-comp, but still a repaint of something, in a sense, and a repaint, if you will. It was using the Megatron card mold. So you can even see that Megatron design there. So that was the next Skylynx. Now, after that, there was a lot of ones that I kind of ignore those ones. And because in 2010, there was the Allspark Almanac Part 2, and Bill Forrester kind of drew together his own version of animated Skylynx. But in my opinion, if it's not Derek Wyatt, and Derek has also kind of aired his opinion on that, it's not really canon. So to me, that isn't really a Skylynx. It's just kind of a whatever, take from it what you will. You might not agree with me, but that be it. And there was also a Shattered Glass Skylynx, which really just kind of kept the combined mode of both the pieces and added more of a lizard aesthetic to it. I don't know. Didn't really do much for the character, just kind of made cameos and one-lines. But now we get to what we have today. And we bring this guy in. So we have the Transformers Beast Hunters, Predacon Rising, Skylynx. Again, keeping to the fact that so far all the Skylynxes that we've had after this one have been villains or Decepticons. So this one is one of the Predacons, created by Shockwave himself. So with his brother, I believe his name was Darksteel. So we're going to open this up, and we're going to do a review of the latest incarnation of the character of Skylynx. So let's do it. So while the toy is packaged in robot mode, we are going to traditionally start in the alt mode. Now, the alt mode here has everything except its disc weapons, which I'm leaving out for this case because it's supposed to be displayed without them. I will say that these disc weapons are made out of a brown plastic that is already showing BPS syndrome, and it is straight out of the package of a brand new toy. So I guarantee that these in the future are going to be a big issue in a couple of years because they're pressure based, but I'll get into that when we get into robot mode. Now, Skylynx's alt mode clearly harkens to all those dragon aesthetics that seem to be used with the Skylynx character now. Very weird history that kind of crosses everything. Now, this is actually, once again, a repaint. Skylynx really hasn't had luck in the past when it comes to getting his own original mold, so he has yet again a repaint. He's a repaint of the Transformers Beast Hunters toys Sky Stalker. And Sky Stalker, oddly enough, was kind of a homage to Cryotech in terms of colors. So it's kind of how weird how things is. You had Flame Convoy with the Cryotech color homage, but then there was the Skylynx color homage. And then you have, like, Skylynx being used from a Megatron design from the movie, and Megatron was also repainted into Cryotech. It seems that the repaint brothers going on with Skylynx, he's falling into that Megatron and Cryotech family. But yeah, enough of that. So he's kind of this like skeleton ram meets dragon look. Again, the Predacons and all of Shockwave's experiments seem to really have this mix mash of mythical creatures and stuff, but looks really cool. I would call it a Beast Wars kind of articulation in which animals like this have multiple joints everywhere, so there's plenty of posability and everything. But much like Beast Wars, he has what I like to always call a Cheetor transformation, in that it's extremely simple to transform. As you could already kind of see, this transformation is going to more or less involve standing up and a few twists and turns to create a more, human robot aesthetic. Not much more I could really say, just really cool. Again, he has the disc gimmick here, but it's more meant for the robot mode, so we'll get to that with the transformation. Transformation. So here is the robot mode. Now, the robot mode, like I said, using the Cheetor kind of transformation that was kind of pioneered a little bit with Transmetal, going into Transmetal 2, and you really see the Beast Machine aesthetic there. Very simple, stand up, twist and turn that, the hands, there's an ab crunch that has to be fixed, shoulders that go down, a crotch that has to be closed up, essentially, but it's more or less an extremely simple transformation. So for those that are worried about deluxes that are that are a lot more complicated from the movie era, you're not going to find that here. It's very simple, this one. What I do like about it does have little gimmicks here and there that kind of add to it. Now, as I mentioned before, he has this disc gimmick that you plug in a disc here, and working on a pressure, it fires, essentially. You put your finger in there, and whoo, there it goes. But this stuff is made out of brown plastic, and because you could even see the swirls already starting, I get a feeling with this pressure gimmick, this thing's going to be shattered in a couple of years when the oxygen gets in between the areas. Now, for people that aren't familiar with brown plastic or gold plastic, look that up. It's on certain websites that like to talk about it, and you'll understand what I mean. For anyone who's ever owned a Beast Wars Grimlock, Megatron, yeah. Anyways, I did another video on gold plastic also, so look up Stampy if you want to. Actually, not Stampy, Randy, and you'll understand what I mean. Anyways, another cool thing he has is his tail weapon here has a little piece on the end, which kind of becomes like, I want to call it like a pair of dino brass knuckles. And it's not the easiest thing to slide in. It has a little piece there that goes over a part of his knuckle. And now he's got like this dino brass knuckle that he could punch people with, which is kind of cool. Again, they didn't have to do that, but I guess a little extra piece here and there, and it adds more playability to the toy. But he does look really good, though, and in all honesty, right now this mold, if you will, has 3 different options that you could pick, essentially. The original Skystalker mold, which again is the homage to Cryotech and was the first release of this. And then there's a third one in the Transformers Go line in Japan. There's Judora, who is, again, he's one of the villain characters in Transformers Go. Judora, I believe, Judora, like translates essentially to, like, you know, cursed dragon or punished dragon, essentially. And his character is kind of like this male, effeminate kind of, you know, evil demon beast, and almost kind of what an evil version, I guess, of Skylinks would be. So it's kind of cool, at least the character is kind of there, where with this one he's kind of a typical villain brute in the Predacon Rising's fiction and the show, where Skystalker, his first mold, never even got any true fiction. So this is the way to go if you want to own something fictionally. So that's more or less all I could say. I think if you had to decide on which one of the 3 molds to get, I think that this Skylinks one is the most important one, as it is a show character and probably the nicest of the bunch, and it's just nice to have a historical addition to the Skylinks family as opposed to Skystalkers that really have nothing really to add and have a name that has been thrown around everywhere. And the likes of Judora, which in all honesty will probably be very expensive and doesn't really add much or anything. And I'm not a big fan of the colors either. But yeah, so this is Protoman of Protoretro, and this has been a video review of the Transformers Beast Hunters Predacon Rising Target exclusive only Skylinks. So until then, guys, take care and roll out.